Welcome, Fivers, to the second Fantasy5 podcast. With the season heating up, everyone in the Fantasy5 headquarters is getting very excited to get going. And we wanted to jump into the very common debate, is Harry Kane world-class or not? Now, after last week, my co-host Daniel made it clear his views on Harry Kane, so we thought we would discuss it a little further and see what it really takes to be a world-class footballer.
Yeah, I think first of all, we've got to ask the question, like, what constitutes a player to be world-class? Do they need to win titles? Do they need to have several honours under their belt? I personally think a world-class elite player leads their team to win trophies. They're the reason behind their club's success. You look at Lewandowski, you look at Gerrard, you look at Benzema. They've all won trophies. I'll actually list out a few. So like Benzema's won League One 4 times, he's won Liga 4 times, he's won Champions League 5 times. Lewandowski's won 10 Bundesliga titles.
So you're taking the stance that Harry Kane's not.
But then you compare these stats that you see, like Benzema, Lewandowski. I know they play for elite clubs, but they've led their teams to these big trophies. Even Benzema's won the World Cup as well. Harry Kane.
Was Benzema in the team for France when they won the World Cup, or was he banned? I think he might have been banned.
Either way, he has led his club to several trophies, whereas Harry Kane hasn't even come close. Maybe the Champions League was the closest he's come. But apart from that, I personally think purely because of that reason alone, you can't even begin to argue is he world class because he hasn't led his team to anything.
So trophies is the number one be all end all to be a world class footballer. Is that what we're saying here? Is that what you're saying here? Because
I don't think it's just like purely trophies. Because then you could say several players are world class. I think it's that presence they have on the team and leading their team to the trophies. Name any world class player or anyone we deem as world class, and they have been a big part of their club's success. Harry Kane in the big games, I think he even said this last podcast episode. In the big games, he does bottle it a bit.
I think there's many factors that come into a world class player. So yes, obviously trophies, and as you said, leading a team, being a role model and propelling other players is a big part of being a world-class player. However, the mindset, just a general technical ability, your physique, these other things, they definitely come into play when talking about a world-class player. And Harry Kane ticks the box for pretty much everything except trophies. And he's playing for Tottenham, and you can understand that when he's playing for Tottenham in the Premier League. And when the comparisons that you've just given are players who are playing outside of the Premier League in what we can all agree are weaker leagues, and then they're performing on the big stage. Benzema for France, so he's within a French team, which he hasn't been a big part of because of his whole sex scandal. But, you know, he's obviously within a team that have proven themselves time and time again throughout our whole lives. And then you've got Lewandowski, who you've mentioned, who hasn't done much for Poland. He maybe gets them to qualifiers, gets them to the... Well, I'm not even sure if they're in the World Cup this year, but they got them to the Euros, and he's not really done, too much there. If you take Kane, for example, Kane's goal ratio in the Premier League is 0.64. So he's every game he's got a 64% chance of scoring a goal, or he has scored. Benzema at 0.52 in the Spanish league, and then obviously you've got Lewandowski, who's absolutely killed it in the Bundesliga at 0.81 goals per game. So if you're comparing just that, then obviously it goes Lewandowski, Kane, then Benzema. And then if you look at the German league and the players that have moved from the German league to the Premier League, it's very hard to make a comparison. You have Jadon Sancho, who, if I'm looking at my notes here, he scored at a ratio of every 0.4 goals per game. In the Premier League, he's at 0.11. You've got Timo Werner, who was at 0.5 goals per game. He's now at 0.2 in the Premier League.
I think if you're going purely off goal, I think now you're going off purely off goals rather than purely off trophies, because you're talking about goal ratios, and you look at like the top 10 Premier League goal scorers. You've got Shearer at the top. Was Shearer world class? He won 1 Premier League title. He had a massive impact on his team, so that maybe does separate him from Kane because he took Newcastle places. He won the Premier League with Blackburn. But then you've also got players like Defoe in that list who are only 20 goals behind Harry Kane in the list of the top 10 Premier League goal scorers. And Jermaine Defoe is nowhere near a world-class player. He's very similar to Kane in his honours and the things he's won. He hasn't won much.
But he has also been playing for 20 years, and there's a different amount of appearances there. But agreed. Like, can you compare Harry Kane to Alan Shearer? And is Alan Shearer world class? I know he's maybe a little bit before your time on a weekly basis, but will his goals, being the leading Premier League goal scorer, is he world class?
I think another thing you have to look at as well with Spurs is, I know you say he plays for Spurs, and that maybe hinders his trophies and chances of winning things. But if he really is elite, he really is world class, if he is one of the top tier players, I mean, you look at Spurs' last 4 finishes in the Premier League, they finished 4th, 7th, 6th and 4th. They've always been like very low down in the Premier League. If they've got a player as good as Kane, as someone who can lead a team, who is world class, who's one of those elite, say if Tottenham had Lewandowski, do you think they'd be finishing 4th, 6th, 7th? Would they finish 7th?
No, I don't think Lewandowski would make any difference. If they got rid of Kane and brought in Lewandowski, I think it would. I think Spurs would perform worse.
I think Lewandowski, Haaland, Mbappe, Benzema, put them into a Spurs team, they'll have a much bigger impact than Kane. Kane's been outshone by the blocks of by Son.
There's no way. You're talking about one season, and in that season, Kane still has more assists than De Bruyne, more assists than Trent. Over the last 2 seasons, he's got more, and they're your 2 favourite players in terms of. We're looking at all-round ability here. So his assists, he's better than both of them. He was the top goal scorer last season, I believe, ahead of Salah. This season, he was 6 goals off Salah, and as you said also, he was shit. He wasn't good. Last season was probably his worst season for Spurs. He still got, I think, was it 9 assists last season and 17 goals.
Would you say Kane's like above Salah, above like Mane and stuff like that? Because as soon as you start calling Kane world class, you've then also got to call Mane, Salah, all these players world class too. And then where does it
into the debate? But that also comes into debate. Why are these Premier League players not put in the same limelight as the Barcelona, Real Madrid, even Bayern Munich players? Like, the Premier League is the best league in the world. Yes, Real Madrid won the Champions League. I think if those games were played again, it'll be very unlikely that Madrid win. Even though Madrid, they know how to win. So that's unfair saying that. But the Premier League teams, on a week-by-week basis, are playing better quality players, better quality teams, and there's a sort of disrespect for the Premier League in terms of world-class players.
I wouldn't say that. I think you look at players like Salah, they've only really done it in the last few years for Liverpool. They've won 1 Premier League, Liverpool. And then you look at players like Benzema, Lewandowski. Lewandowski was, I think...
What's he done? He's won the German League. They're going to win the German League regardless. He scored he scored a couple of goals.
Jacob, I'm going to tell you what he's done. 10 Bundesliga titles. Imagine...
What does that mean, though? But Bayern Munich winning a Bundesliga title, literally, what does it mean? Did he do it for Dortmund?
I mean, you say that, but...
Did he do it for Dortmund once? Was it all with Bayern Munich?
Pretty sure it was with Dortmund and Bayern, but I get what you're saying. But then if you say that, I mean, I think City are now the new Bayern of the Premier League.
But
I think no one really compares it.
You say that, but Liverpool got to Dortmund weren't getting to the semi-final of the Champions League. Dortmund weren't in the final of the Champions League the last 3 seasons.
But do you think? I think part of Bayern's success has been they've had Lewandowski for so many seasons. I think he has carried them to those.
Prior to Lewandowski, they were doing the same thing. They were winning more Champions Leagues prior to Lewandowski. They were one of the biggest teams in Europe. When they got Lewandowski, they brought him to be one of the biggest teams in Europe to win the Champions League, and they've not been able to do so.
He's also been consecutively in the Bundesliga team this season since 2012, so every season.
What does that mean?
But there are huge players in the Bundesliga. I think that's disrespecting Bundesliga.
Name me a few. Like, you've got Jude Bellingham, who's 20 years old, who's ripping it up over there. You've got players like Werner, Havertz and Sancho, who were supposed to be these incredible footballers, like absolutely destroying the German league, come to the Premier League. They've both now had a few... Well, Sancho not yet, but they've had a few seasons. And Havertz is now playing as a striker instead of where he was playing previously, and he's still not...
I think the Bundesliga is like massively disrespected. I think the Premier League isn't miles ahead of the Bundesliga. Bundesliga have got. I mean, you look at the Premier League, Bundesliga, it is exactly the same. You've got City and Liverpool who are running the Premier League, and you've got Bundesliga, you've got Dortmund, you've got
you've got to look at the
Bundesliga, you've got
European
Leipzig.
tournaments. Yeah, but where are these guys in these?
They're all in
European
the
tournaments?
I mean, Bayern and Dortmund have got the Champions League.
Of course, there's 4 teams that go from Germany to the Champions League, so they're going to get to the Champions League, but they don't progress. They get to the knockout stages and they're out with a round of 16 or the quarterfinals.
I think if you look at Bayern's record in Champions League, and probably Dortmund's as well. I don't have it to hand, but I'm pretty sure if you looked at that, you would see they've done very well, and there's no different to Man City and Liverpool.
You wouldn't know. Prior to Lewandowski, they did well. Since Lewandowski, they've not got to a major final.
Yeah, I mean, you're
comparing Lewandowski to Kane,
the whole
and saying that he's world class. Yes, he's scored 0.8 goals per game in the Bundesliga. It is incredible. He's also scored a lot of international goals for Poland, and he leads that team. But you can't. There's no comparison here. He's playing for the best team in Germany. They still can't win an European tournament.
Would you say Lewandowski and Kane in their prime? Who would you pick out of those two?
I'd pick Kane, based on what we've seen from him and. What he in a final of it depends where we're talking. If it was a cup final,
Lewandowski almost won the Ballon d'Or last year.
Yeah, but again,
he didn't win the Ballon d'Or.
He didn't win it.
He came second in the Ballon d'Or after Messi and Ronaldo.
Yeah, so he had one season where he scored a lot of goals in German football, and it was a season where Messi and Ronaldo did not perform as well. They didn't. It was weird. Messi shouldn't have won it.
But why is Harry Kane not up there then?
Because Harry Kane has not hit those heights. He's scored in many goals. He's scoring as many goals, but he's not. As a team, we're not winning the league. We're not winning tournaments. So again, you're talking about the team itself. He's not being mentioned in these names because he's playing for Tottenham.
And I think that goes back to these. To be elite, you do need to play for the biggest teams in Europe, Bayern, Barcelona. Maybe not Barcelona anymore because they've dropped off. At Man City, people who are winning Champions Leagues, Premier Leagues, and you need to show you can do it in the finals at the highest level. You can go and score a hat-trick against Barcelona, for example. I haven't seen Harry Kane do that, and I haven't seen him lead Tottenham to any kind of success in any of these tournaments other than one time in the Champions League where they had a good run. But again, that's one time he's done it. Apart from that, they finished 6th and 7th in the Prem. They haven't even competed.
We were second in the Prem 4 years ago.
5 years ago.
5 years ago. Since then, he has led us. He's been a one-man team. We've had a complete shit show of management and running of our team. And he's managed to, while that's still happening, to have some of the best stats in the Prem. Assists, goals. He's up there, if not top, over those 4 or 5 years.
But they mean nothing. But they mean nothing if Tottenham finishing 7th.
But how can you say that? That's the team. But if he's still able to be the top goal scorer and have the most assists in the Premier League, even though his surrounding players aren't as good, there's something there. You can't ignore.
But he's not a leader. He hasn't motivated the team. He hasn't taken the team to that next level. He hasn't because they finished 6th, 7th. They haven't got to the Champions. They haven't won a Champions League.
But you're talking about. You're using 2 years where there's been a merry-go-round of management.
4 years, and that's enough to look at. The last 4 years, and that's probably Harry Kane's prime as well.
Yeah, but he's a top goal scorer in the Premier League over that time. He's got the most assists in the Premier League over that time.
It doesn't mean anything.
You're just looking at Tottenham. You're looking at the club. You're not looking at the.
But that's the only place he's proven himself. He's the only place he's played.
Okay, so let's move on. So you've got Harry Kane at England right now in World Cup football. He's 6 goals from 6 games. He's got 2 more World Cups ahead of him. I reckon he'll be, if not with the original Ronaldo at 15 goals, I think it is, and Kloss is at 16 goals. There's nothing to stop Kane from being the all-time World Cup highest goal scorer. With the group that we've got in the next World Cup and in the next World Cup in 4 years' time, I think we'll be sitting here and Kane will be the top goal scorer of the World Cup. Is that enough to prove that you're world class?
I don't think he will do that until he does that. If he does that, yeah, then okay, maybe we start talking about that.
And England don't win a World Cup, but he's still the top goal scorer ever.
Depends where they finish in the World Cup. If they go out in the group stage, then he probably won't have a chance of being the top scorer. I imagine if he is the top goal scorer of all time in the World, is it top scorer of the World Cup?
Top goal scorer in World Cup of all time, yeah.
How far away is he at the moment?
Kane's only had 1 tournament. He scored 6 goals.
And what's the top scorer?
Kloss is on 16. And Ronaldo's on 5.
Wait, so he's on 6?
He's on 6 from 6 games.
So he needs 10 goals.
He needs 10 more goals,
11 goals.
and he's going to have 2 more tournaments. He's got this one coming up where we've got. So it's tough, but Kane, he's a top
It's so far off. He can't even start saying that yet. I mean, he's so far off.
But his ratio's there. He's proven.
Who else is on? Do you know who else is under Ronaldo? Who's like second and third? How far down is he in the list?
Oh, he's far down. He's only on 6 goals.
So you can say about anyone. You probably said about anyone.
His ratio of goals per game. He's only played in 1 tournament.
You could say Gavi, who's 17 in.
Gavi hasn't scored in an international tournament.
But he could. So it's very hypothetical.
Yes, once Gavi scores 6 goals in 6 games, let's have that conversation.
If Harry Kane scores 10 goals over the next 2 tournaments, which by the 3rd tournament he'll be 37. If
32.
A tournament after that, he'll be.
We're not talking about the 3rd tournament. He's got a tournament now where he'll be 29.
So he's got 11 goals in the next
32
tournament.
the next one. No, so he's got a tournament coming up in Qatar where he'll be 29.
Yeah.
And then he's got the next World Cup where he'll actually be 32, not 33.
Yeah, that makes sense. But until he does that, you can't have that debate. You can't use that as an argument for him being world class. He's not world class now. Maybe we'll be saying something different in 4 years' time if he does that, and then he goes to win a Premier League for Tottenham or something. I don't think you can say that now.
I think his international goal ratio again is like 0.7 goals per game. There's no one really competing with that.
That's the only argument. That's the only argument there is.
Well, that he scores loads of goals.
Yeah, but then you look at there's players who score loads of goals in the past, and they're not considered. Alan Shearer, I wouldn't consider him world class.
Alan Shearer's not even in the top 5-6 players for England in goals.
But he's first of all time in the Premier League. And then if we're going purely off goals, like saying, because this guy's scored so many goals, he's now considered world class. I don't think that is the case.
No, but Shearer was a goal scorer. Kane has a lot more to his game. And I don't think, for reasons that that people say that Kevin De Bruyne is such a good player, it's because of his assists, it's because of his mobility around the pitch, because of what he can create.
But he's also done it for Man City. Man City are a top club, and he's won the Premier League with them.
But that makes it easier. If De Bruyne is trying to pick out Sterling, Aguero,
it's so hard
to pass to Aguero over De Bruyne trying to pass to Lucas Moura. You think there's a difference?
It's so much harder to be a big fish in a big pond than be a big fish in a little pond and stand out amongst players.
I wouldn't call England I wouldn't call England a little pond, and I wouldn't even call Tottenham
Who else have you got other than Son?
What, in terms of
world class players?
You're saying them.
Okay.
Them are world class.
In terms of players who compare to the likes of Kane and Son's ability, because they are good players. But they're not world class. But who compares?
Tell me a player Tell me another striker in the Premier League who compares. You've got Salah who compares to Son, obviously, but now with Mane gone, who compares to Son?
Haaland's he's going to be in the next season.
So Haaland can compare to Kane.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. He's got probably a better goal ratio than Kane does already, and he's only
in the Bundesliga.
He's only young.
In the Bundesliga.
We'll see. We'll see for City next season. We'll go on to that in a different pod. But yeah, no, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think Kane's really in the top 10 of the Premier League. You got De Bruyne. You got Salah.
You don't think Kane's in the top 10 players in the Premier League?
No,
That's a big statement. That is a big statement.
I don't think he is. No.
Would you put Trent above Kane?
You can't compare defender and a striker, can you?
But
no.
Who would be in your top 10?
It's like saying is Cancelo better than Kane. You can't say that. No, you can't say that. I can't compare them, but I say in terms of ability, on the ball ability and the impact they have on the team. Yeah, maybe Trent, Cancelo, I put above them. I put De Bruyne above them.
And he goes blank.
I can't think of the top of my head, but I'm sure I could list off more players.
Because there's not. He's Listen, he's a world class.
Even Son, I think even Son's better than Kane.
He's a world class player.
Is Son better than Kane?
Son, even last season when he was Golden Boot, the first half of the season, he's Mahrez, 2 years ago he was the most clinical player for us, especially. Son was unbelievable, if he kept that consistency up, then he'll be pushing Kane. But Kane's just clinical, and I know last season was a rough season for him, but there's not many players that if you put in that position you want ahead of him. The only negative that I see about Kane is if he's not at 100%, if he's not fully fit, then he is so far off the pace. And if you put Benzema or Lewandowski into a team and they're at 70%, 80%, they're more likely to finish.
That's my point.
But it's not, because
That is my
Kane
point.
is only like that for 3-4 games of the season, and then the rest of the season he's at it. So you can't compare those few games. Then you have to take into the fact that they're playing in these leagues where the teams are shit. The Spanish lower league Spanish teams defensively
How about
very
Aguero?
poor. Aguero's
5 Premier League titles.
Aguero, I would say, is
4th
world-class.
highest goal scorer, and actually he's only 2 goals ahead of Kane in total goals.
Probably less appearances.
But Kane doesn't even come close to Aguero in what Aguero's done and
what he's done for City.
What he's done for City and how good he was, his ability wise. I mean, on his
Finishing-wise,
day,
Aguero's
unbelievable.
better. Finishing-wise, Aguero's better, but his general play, it's hard to compare.
And you compare them, and the reason why I say Aguero is better is the impact he's had on City. He's won 4 Premier League titles. Sorry, he's 4th top goals. I mean, I don't even look at goals when I think of Aguero. I think of like what's he done with City. When you looked at him, he was different
But
class.
Aguero is only goals,
and he was.
That's all he that is what he offers. He's able, no matter where he is in the box, even outside
It's
the
not
box,
just that.
wherever he's in the box,
It's presence as well.
Near post, far post. He's got but it's his presence for goal scoring.
He changed City.
He doesn't lift the team like other players lift the team. He doesn't bring other players into the game as much as other players.
But then you also see he scored that famous goal against QPR to win. It's those moments that it's like when Ronaldo scores in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Like those moments that you don't get that with Kane.
I agree with that.
And that's a shame because Kane has had the opportunity to do that for England in obviously the Euros. He had the final,
the
World Cup. He had the Champions League for Spurs as well. Like he hasn't been not given the opportunity to.
You can't talk about that Champions League game because he was injured. He should never have played in that game. But in any other major final, he's gone missing.
Yeah.
And whether that's to do with fitness, mindset, I'm not sure what it is. And I think that is the only thing, and that is the only side of the debate that you can say that Kane's not world class.
I just think he's a goals merchant.
But Lewandowski has not really done that.
Goals merchant.
I don't know. I think Aguero is a goal merchant more so. I think Kane. You see, Kane, if he wanted to, would be playing so much deeper.
So,
he loves to drop deep. Like he's not. He sees the game. He sees it differently to other people. He's aware. He's got great vision. He's got great passing.
The problem with I think the problem is we'll wrap this up in a minute because we're clearly not going to come to an agreement on this. But the problem with saying that trophies maybe don't matter or they're not as significant as like goals, ability, and all of that is then where is the value in winning these major tournaments? What does it actually bring players?
That's not the question. If Kane was playing for Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, like Benzema and Lewandowski, he has to be winning trophies with those teams. He's not.
Do you think he would get in that team though?
Yeah,
I don't think he would get ahead of Lewandowski for a striker spot.
They would find a way to play. Would find a way to make it work.
I think if you put Kane into Bayern, he wouldn't get ahead of Lewandowski. Put him into Dortmund last season.
Barcelona now.
He wouldn't get into Barcelona's team, Kane. I don't think, or even right now, again, over.
I think that's crazy.
Lewandowski.
I think it's crazy. I think you can say he's not a world-class player,
Lewandowski
but to think that people are going to keep Kane on the bench is just madness.
But it's not even just. I mean, first of all, Lewandowski's scoring record's insane. Also, he's done it in the big games, so he's got that experience.
In the Bundesliga, he's not done
in
it
the Champions League. He's got that experience for Bayern, obviously. But
he's not performed. He hasn't performed. He's played for Bayern in the Champions League. They've gotten nowhere, and they are the best team in Germany by a country mile. So I think that's something that, if you're looking at just on these trophies, that's something that you have to take into consideration. Benzema has absolutely smashed it.
He's been in 4 Champions League team this season, so you can't say he's gone missing in Champions League. How many Champions League team seasons does Kane have?
I don't know.
None. So
is it none?
So it is. I mean, that's instantly why Lewandowski over Kane, because he's got the experience of playing well at the elite level, and that needs to mean something. Otherwise, what's the point in having these elite competitions?
Keep going though to Lewandowski for it.
I've got other examples. Benzema, Mbappe,
has done it, yeah.
Mbappe as well, even at his age.
I know, but he's playing for France. He hasn't done it for PSG, and he's playing for France. So France
won a World Cup,
and he's the reason. Yeah, and he's probably a big part of the reason why they won that World Cup. He's exceptional.
That's exactly my point. Is he is probably one of the main reasons why France have won, and he's carried
the same World Cup.
Kane can do it for England.
Kane was the main. Hold on a second. If Kane had passed to Sterling in that last minute of the Croatia game,
he didn't.
Yeah, but he did everything to get us to there.
but he
So
didn't
he was the
pass it.
reason that we got to the semi-final. So you're saying you're taking away everything from him because he didn't make that one pass to Sterling. Whereas if he had made that pass, you would be thinking completely different. And it shows how fickle sports fans are. Because if a team concedes in the last minute, it's like, oh my God, they're so awful. If they hadn't conceded that one goal, it'd be, oh, look how strong they are, look how defensively secure they are. So
People don't remember. People don't remember runners up. That's the problem, and I think that's what change. That's what's difference between champions, elite players, and people who are just below that. Like that is the difference, and that's why we have these elite competitions. That's why we say this person's won 7 Ballon d'Ors. Like Messi's won 7 Ballon d'Ors. That's why we say people have won the Champions League, because like that's the elite. Like once you reach those heights, and no matter how well or badly you play, if you're part of a team, the starting 11 who have won multiple Champions Leagues, even Sergio Busquets doesn't. He's an incredible player. He doesn't stand out in the Barcelona squad, but he's still an elite midfielder. I'd pick him over so many players because of his experience.
But that, for sure, it's like saying Van Dijk, like as in Xavi, Van Dijk. They've all got their own skills that make them world class to an extent. Like there's technical ability that they do. It's not about scoring goals. It's about what they offer on the pitch. So, yeah, I think
let's wrap up.
I think if Kane. So my last question to you is: if Kane went to Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, you think he won't get in the team and wouldn't play all season, and they'll just
not good enough. He hasn't proven himself. He hasn't.
Let's leave it there. Let's leave it there.
We'll
we want to see what you think, Fivers. Would Kane get in the Barca, Real Madrid, or even Bayern Munich starting 11? And is Kane world class? Let us know your thoughts, and we'll see you on the next pod.